Hello everyone. So in my previous two videos, we was talking about decoders, and we built a 1 to 2 decoder and a 2 to 4 decoder. And my ultimate goal was to build up to a 4 to 16 decoder. But building that from 0 to 4 to 16 would require me to design the whole thing and then plan it and then just hope I didn't make a single mistake. So I figured there's actually an easy way to do this, and that is chaining decoders together. Um, so if you remember in the 2 to 4 decoder video, I was talking about the enable line, and you could use that to turn the circuit on or off. And that's the key here. But I'm going to do this with a 1 to 2 decoder, so we need to redesign that first because we didn't have an enable line on that. So to build an enable line on a 1 to 2 decoder, we actually have to swap it over to AND gates. Because before we just had a buffer and an inverter. It was direct. But now we need AND gates. So let's bung some of them down. And we still have our input, and now we have an extra enable line. So if you remember, to get a 1 out on the first input, we actually just inverted the input here. So we'll do that again. There we go. And just bung that straight in there. And to get a 1 out on the second output, we just tied it directly to the input. So at the moment, this is going to do nothing because we haven't enabled it. These are never going to be true. So let's put our enable line in. So now, while enable is true, the input will work. So if it's true, one of these will be true. If it's false, both of these will be false. So if it's true, it will depend on the input, basically. So I'm going to draw a box diagram of this. So we have our input, our enable, and our two outputs. So how do we, chain this to together, chain multiple of these together in order to make a 2 to 4 decoder, for example? Well, let's get two of them. So already you see that we have 4 possible outputs here, and we want 2 inputs. So let's put our inputs down. So we've got 2 inputs and 4 outputs. We take the first bit here, so we'll just call this input 1, and we'll call this input 2. We tie this directly to that. So all this is going to do at the moment is mirror, because these are going to be the same, aren't they? If that's 0, both these will be 1. If that's 1, both these will be 1. So how do we determine which one of these we actually want? Because we want this to be 0, this to be 1, this to be 2, and this to be 3. Well, that's where the second bit comes in. We're going to use this to control the enable lines simply by using another decoder. So this one is that. So we want this so that when it's 0, when the second bit is 0, which is the value 0 to 1, we want this one to be on. So when that's 0, the first output is on. We're going to tie that directly to the enable line of that. So now, when this is 0, only this circuit is enabled, which means we can represent 0 and 1. So when this is 0 and this is 0, this one is on. That's 0. When this is 0 and that's 1, this is on. So that's 1. But now we want to get 2 and 3. Now, 2 and 3 in binary are 1, 0, and 1, 1. So this is 1. So when that's 1, this other output is 1. So we're going to tie that to the enable of the other circuit. Now, when that's 1, this is on. And this is still using the same inputs here. So what happens here is, when that's 1, this is enabled. Okay? When that's 0, it's actually going here. And that's our 2. So that will be 1, 0, which in binary is 2, gives us our third output, which is 2. Or we're going to call it 2 anyway. You can call it whatever you want. And the same goes for 1. When it's 1, 1, that'll be true. Now you'll see this line hasn't actually been set to anything. But because this is happening all the time, that can just be VCC. That's just power. You just plug it in and it works. Okay, so that, using 3 1 to 2 decoders, we've built a 2 to 4 decoder. And you can chain this up as many times as you like. So you can take 2 2 to 4 decoders, and that will give you 8 outputs, and you can do the same thing where you'd have 2 inputs here, the first 2 bits go into those, and then the third bit is the control line. Sorry, the control bit, as it were. And in that situation, you'd just need another 1 to 2 decoder. So it's really simple to just keep chaining these up. And that's my plan. I'm going to build loads of these on perf board and whatnot. And I'm going to have little output pins, so I can just chain these together with DuPont cables or something. So that's the plan. I hope that's going to be simpler than trying to build it from scratch. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.